well, followed that. I don't think I can. Actually, what I was going to say follows very neatly. So, first of all, thank you, Maura and Brian, for entrusting me with this opportunity to share thoughts. I feel, having listened to you, Brian, like a little bit of an imposter here, because I don't work in disability. At least I don't work there all the time. I am one of those reformed psychologists that originally came from that setting way back in the early 80s, but I am working in a number of different areas. But we were asked by Brian as speakers to do a couple of things. One was to share our thoughts about what is our vision for people with disabilities and what their lives will be like in 2030. Secondly, to identify some ideas that will inspire us. And then lastly, to comment on what the national agenda is. So I'm going to have a go doing that in a few minutes. So my vision for people with disabilities in 2030 is actually that they would be enabled and supported to create their own vision for their own lives and be supported to achieve that. So I think we already have some fabulous examples and inspirational examples in the room on this. And I'd like to maybe introduce you to two people that are doing this at the moment because they're better at speaking about it for themselves. So this is Mark.
I live in my own apartment. The happy man. Competent.
Mark's quality of life, it would have been poor. Living in institutional care where you didn't really have a choice of your food, you didn't really have a choice if you could shower every day, or what activities you could do, or where you could go.
The Finn Hospital is very disturbing. But being it's not a place, but to deport.
They were just always watching. I did not have any freedom.
It was just an amazing thing to see, like someone that appeared to me so independent didn't have access to a bank account. All of the meals are delivered in Coolum, so no one cooked out there.
My brother was actually afraid that I would move, and then the staff supported him to be able to support me to move. And then my brother was okay with it, and I was okay.
Mark, obviously learning how to cook was amazing. Manages his finances absolutely independently. He's involved with church groups. He's heavily involved with the deaf community also in Tralee. He's a real part of his community. He makes his own decisions. It's his life that no one dictates.
Competent.
I now feel confident, I'm happy, I'm busy, and I'm busy in the apartment.
Okay, so that's Mark. Just give you another minute and a half of somebody else's life. So David's life.
David's a very capable man and he likes to show you what he can do. But in an institution, he was denied that. He couldn't show what he was capable of. Due to the nature of institutions, people are kind of just holding together, not seen as individuals.
David lives in Drumcar since 2001, was it, David?
Yeah, he was there.
Yeah, and we've moved out here now. There's only 4 residents. We visited this house numerous occasions before we actually moved into it. David came out and he picked his room and he was excited.
Yeah.
As I said, David's very, independent and he enjoys going out and meeting people in the local community and participating in stuff. He's big into the local GAA club now and he's going for pints and the local pub and bowling, yeah.
In the institution, you were warm, you were fed, like you couldn't say that you weren't, people cared about you, but the essence of life was missing.
When he was in Drumcar, the food came up prepared to what he's at now, preparing the dinner for himself and the other residents in the house, so it's a big change for him. Yeah, we can see him kind of thriving more out here and kind of reaching to his full potential.
Okay, so that's a couple of people. One who is living on his own and decided to do that, and David who's living with 3 other men that he has chosen to live with. Now, this is a snapshot of Mark and David's life at this minute, and obviously as they have contact and have more experience in their communities, they will develop their own vision of their own lives and hopefully be supported to achieve that. Because one of the difficulties, I think, is that people can be feeling under enormous pressure to develop what is, some ultimate vision of their lives, and they get a chance to move once, and then they get frozen in some snapshot of, this is the good life. And I remember talking to a really impressive staff member some years ago. She was trying to support somebody to move out of an institution, but didn't want to make any choices for him. So she was keen that he choose, where he was going to live. Did he want to live with somebody or not? What kind of way did he want his place decorated? And she was really running into problems because this was a guy who had never made choices like that. Never had a chance to choose what he was eating, what time he got up and or went to bed at, what he did, who he spent time with. So it was a big expectation, and she was well motivated, but in fact I wondered was she wise. And I remembered at the time that one of our sons, not the one waiting in Kinnegad, another son who was in transition year at the time, and he had a clue about what he wanted to do. And certainly we wouldn't have wanted him to repeat transition year in school until he made up his mind about what he was going to do when he got out. He was 22 last week. He's still not sure about what he wants to do. He's on a path, but he may change course, and that's fine. And none of us should feel under that kind of obligation to fix our lives in some ultimate vision and stay there. And of course, we all know in this room, I don't need to be saying this to anybody here, we all know that the way that people develop a vision of their own lives is that they are supported by people around them who respect them as individuals, who listen to them, who have some sense of what their strengths are, some sense of what their needs are, their challenges are, and they bring around resource that will help them overcome those challenges. So getting to know people and working with people and supporting people on an individual basis is definitely the route to this. Grouping people together and giving them a one-size-fits-all response is not the route to do this. Okay? So my vision is that people would be supported to develop and realise their own vision, that we would see that as a process and not an event, and that we would be supporting people as individuals, all people with disabilities, as individuals to do this, and not trying to do this in some group situation and completely break that association that we've been dogged with, particularly in Ireland, of if you want to give somebody something special, you have to take them out and group them together and segregate them, which we know really further stigmatises people and is not sensible. So that's my vision. So then I'm thinking, what are the inspirational ideas around that we've been asked to identify? Well, if we were in other countries, we would probably be starting with looking at the government and saying, okay, so the government control most of the resource. They have the mandate to do and change things. So we better persuade the government that they should be supporting through the resources that they're allocating people as individuals and move away from these group-focused services. But actually, we live in Ireland, so we're really lucky because this is our national policy objective in Ireland. This is internationally groundbreaking policy. When you look at what is being said in other countries, there's certainly aspirational policy. What's really great about our Irish policy is that we're talking about moving away from group-focused service delivery towards a model of person-centred and individually chosen supports. Individually chosen, how radical is that? So putting people right at the centre. So I find this really inspirational. What I find dispiriting is that I don't hear people talking about it much. So this was published in 2012. So if we start then thinking about, okay, we have the policy, we don't even have to have that fight in Ireland. This is already in place as a national policy objective. How many people are benefiting from this as a policy? Well, we don't know because we're not tracking this. We know that people like my own husband, people like Rachel who's providing great leadership, Fanula in education, Brian in the platform, we know there are people really using all the resources that they have to try and make this policy relevant to people, but we're not actually tracking this. I know, for example, in the organisation that I work with, in Genio, that we've been trying to support people to, I can work this myself, can I? Yeah, okay, thank you. So I know this is the number of people we've been involved in trying to support with funding that's come through us, with some capacity building, with trying to have other people in the field. That's a really small number of people. I mean, it's great, and it's great to have been involved in touching the lives of this number of people. This is small, a lot, when we compare it with the majority of people that need to be touched by this. It's not the only thing that's happening because all of these other things are happening, but we're still talking about, are we near a majority of people? If our vision for 2030 is that all people have this possibility of realising their own vision, developing their own vision. Are we near that? Are we even at a sizable minority? I'm not so sure. So, inspirational lives and inspirational stories. So what else would we look for inspiration? Well, the money. The money's always good to track, you know, follow the money, they say, and that's how you get a sense of the seriousness with which policy is being taken. So again, we don't know. We've no idea how much money is being spent to implement the policy that moves the focus to individualised arrangements and away from group focused services. Good initiatives happening, but we don't actually have a sense of how much because we're not tracking that. We know again in Genio that in between 2010 and 2015 we set up a change fund with government and with philanthropy, and there was some money, 24 million between that period, that was routed through Genio to try and help refocus services away from that group focus to the individualised, person-centred, cost-effective way of doing things. That drew a further 32 million. Great. And when we talk in millions, it always sounds wonderful. Now we know that over the 10 years, 68 million has been routed in this way across a number of areas. And that is really great, and we've been very grateful to be involved and privileged to be involved in this work. And this is alongside what is happening in other parts of the country where service providers are deliberately realigning their resources against what is national policy. But in that 10 years, 24 billion has been spent on disability and mental health. I mean, do the maths. I mean, this is such a tiny fraction that you would really wonder, how serious are we about implementing this policy? So, at this point when I'm looking for inspiration, I'm getting to feel a little bit, depressed, a little bit low, and I'm feeling, great inspirational idea, but how far are we getting towards it? So, at the beginning, when we were involved in this area, we were working with early innovators, with people like yourselves in this room, up for it, wanting to do it, full of ideas and full of energy to do it. I thought, we'll never get this scaled, we'll never get this offered to everybody unless we get involved with working with people who really are resistant to change. So we began to offer to help in places that have reputations for being really hard to change. And now when I look for inspiration, I go to what is happening in those places that have those reputations. So maybe we could introduce Bernie. So Bernie is supported by Oris Attracta, and we all know the reputation that Oris Attracta has earned.
Bernie, she's a very, very outgoing, bubbling personality. She came to live with us in Oris Attracta in the late 90s. Traditionally, people would have lived in a bungalow-type setting on campus, but they may have been living with 9 others. Mayo Community Living, as we are now known, is an entirely new service. So this was new beginnings for everyone.
We've more time now, don't we? Because there's only 3 people living here. We can have a much better life, don't we? Doing the things we want to do. Tell them about your job, Dan.
My job downtown, Vincent Paul.
Yeah, what do you do down there?
Iron the clothes.
And you do arrange them on the
I
hangers.
go swimming.
And you're going to Slimming World once a week downtown here, yeah. When do we have our house meetings?
Thursday.
Yeah, Thursday or Friday usually, don't we? In ours, the meals would have come down cooked from a catering department. So now we sit down once a week and we plan out, don't we, our menu for the week. And then each week one of them goes down with us to do the shop. And
post office, we do post office.
we go to the post office and we post cards to family and stuff, and we lodge money in the post office. Book your saving, might go on a holiday yet.
Bernie has even participated in the cooking that's involved in that. She's really availing of everything in the community, and she loves meeting new people and telling them her news. They have the right to live in a regular community the same as you and I, and we have to afford them that opportunity.
Okay, so they have the right to live in the community the same as you and I, and we have to support them to afford them that opportunity. Have they? Do we? Are we doing this for enough people? So when we look at the hundreds of people who have had the courage to take their own destinies into their own hands, the families that have stepped forward away from the more specialist safety nets that Brendan was talking about earlier, to do something creative and beyond what they might be offered by the state. That is wonderful inspiration, but we're still not talking about anything like enough people. So when I think about what is the national agenda, it was a really good question, because I thought, is there a national agenda, actually? And is the national agenda to achieve the policy? Right now, there just are not enough people who hold budgets in government agencies who are pushing for this. There are not enough service providers who are pushing for this. And most critically and most sadly, there are not enough people with disabilities and their families pushing for this. So when I put those three together, I think, where is this going to go? This is possible. We have demonstrated in Ireland, we're not talking about taking something in from Denmark or Canada, we have demonstrated in Ireland for all levels of need, for all complexities, it's feasible. It's feasible financially, it's feasible on a support basis. But will it happen? So I'm going to leave the last word, almost the last word, to John's stepfather, actually.
John is very easy to get on with. He has a wicked sense of humour. Bit of a lovable character, actually. John would be in St Raphael's for the best part of over 30 years. It's kind of a hard thing to say that it served its purpose. But there was no alternative, really. It was a big worry. And the older you get, the more you think, if you want on around, how's he going to cope? The difference between coming here and there is a big difference. I never thought it could happen. There's been just a massive change. He's his own person, which he has never been for such a long time, really. And he can make decisions. If what he wants to do, I can't imagine that happening before. What can I say? Is his flourishing? I don't know kind of how much work put in on. So to get to that standard and then let it go backwards like would be, I mean, there's no way back. It's just like coming out of a winter and a long winter and just coming out into a bit of sunlight.
Okay, no way back. So that is inspirational. That does give us some hope, I think, that we've come a certain part of the journey. We can't stand still and we can't go back. But I do think that we have a choice to make. So we can go full forward and we can go together and we can just go for this. Or we can veer off. We can veer off into that other area, which is about pilot project land, and we'll do it for a few more and we won't really, do it for everybody. We'll always find a way to kind of slow this down and not really front up and do it. So I'm hoping that we do it for everybody and that everybody can do it together. But I'm certainly not convinced that that's going to be the case in 2030 yet. So I just leave you with the vision of our own vision in the organisation is of a society that benefits by valuing all its citizens. And I think when you meet people, that are really touched by disability, Rachel, Fanula, lots of people here, all of us know. One of the first people I met in this area when I started was a guy called Eugene Cannon, who sadly has passed away. And Eugene was paralysed from the neck down. I met him in a hotel that he nominated. He came without any personal assistant, came on a wheelchair operated by his chin, out of the lift into the room, and we had the most amazing conversation. And he was truly inspirational. And after the meeting, I wrote to him and said, Eugene, that was just a great meeting. He was realistic about money. He was just great. And he wrote back to me and he said, don't be so impressed, he said. I'm one of the lucky ones, he said. I was able-bodied until I was 19, so I know how people see people with disabilities. That's a big help. I have a full-time job. I'm earning a living. I have a partner. His carer fell in love with him. They married. He had a life and he realised the vision of his life. And he is an inspiration to everybody who's getting up in the morning thinking this is maybe not such a good day. For him to get up in the morning was a much bigger deal. So that for me and all of the people who are challenged by some difficulty and get over that challenge tells us how enriching it is to embrace diversity rather than let's do this because it's the right thing to do. It's not just the right thing to do, it's actually the best thing to do for everybody in society. Okay, so I'll leave it there.